So last month I watched Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, and it was better than I expected. In fact, what I expected wasn't very much. Looking at the trailers of this film and going into it, I thought I was going to absolutely hate it. Instead, the film surprised me by being able to make me laugh multiple times and having enough good stuff in the film that distracts you from all the bad stuff. This is definitely one of those films that the more you think about it, the worse it gets. But I don't think this movie's trying to be good at all. I don't think it's trying to be anything that's supposed to impress you or blow you away. I think it's straight up just trying to be something that's going to just give you an entertaining 2 hours. Does that make the film good? No. In fact, the movie's pretty bad. And with that being said, I remember one of the biggest complaints that people were having when the trailer first came out was that it wouldn't be able to live up to the potential of the original Robin Williams film. However, if you actually go back and watch that film and take off nostalgia glasses, that film is pretty bad on its own as well. So in reality, I'm able to look at this film without having to compare it to anything because I believe that this film doesn't have much to live up to in the first place. The problems in this film are things that audiences aren't going to generally care about, but are things that value the product nonetheless. This film is really nothing special at all, and if things like continuity errors bother you, this film's gonna drive you absolutely mad. Both continuity as a sequel between this movie and the original movie, and continuity within this film itself. This film could have easily not been called Jumanji, and I don't think people would really be able to tell the difference. The only thing that makes this Jumanji really Jumanji-like is the fact that it has Jumanji in the name. The game that's in this film could easily have been called Zaboomba, and people would have treated it no differently. All the actors were great, but I don't think they did anything really outside of their comfort zone. Dwayne Johnson played Dwayne Johnson. The only real difference is he had some different lines that you wouldn't usually hear out of him. Kevin Hart was straight Kevin Hart, and if you're tired of his humor, this film might annoy you. Jack Black and Gillian were definitely the highlights of this film, and I'd almost recommend seeing it just to see them. Jack Black playing a teenage girl is absolutely hilarious, and Gillian is just great as always. Nick Jonas is also in this film, but that I'll get into later. I'm about to get into spoiler talks. If you don't want to hear any of that and you just wanted to hear my general opinion, there's definitely things in this film that are a huge annoyance and make it from being anything special. And really the biggest highlights of this film are our 4 main actors besides maybe Kevin Hart. There's your general review. I'm about to get into spoiler talk. So if you don't want to hear that, go ahead and click this time in the video. There's your warning. 3, 2, 1. So like I said, my biggest problem with this film is probably the continuity errors between both the original and this one and within the film itself. And when it comes to within the film itself, the big one that bothers me the most is the Kevin Hart character. The whole plot of the film revolves around these 4 teenagers who wind up in the video game together being portrayed by different avatars that are pretty much opposite of their personality that they actually have. For the most part, this works. When Dwayne Johnson forms up, he's pretty much trying to act like a nerd. Jack Black as an avatar portrays a teenage girl, and he's definitely, again, the highlight. Gillian comes out the girl as the one who's ugly and very shy. And then here's Kevin Hart. Now, what's actually kind of interesting about this is when the character who's going to be portrayed by Kevin Hart was appeared, he's almost quiet, he's almost sinister, he's not very loud, and then here comes Kevin Hart just being Kevin Hart. It's a very big continuity that bothers me the most. Either they should have had the original actor play as Kevin Hart, or tell Kevin Hart to not be Kevin Hart. There's other continuity errors in the film, like for example, earlier in the movie, there's a scene where it's only the bad guy being shown, and the characters are saying, ooh, look, it's a cutscene, that's why we're not there anymore. But then later on, there's another scene where the bad guy is the only one on screen, and they don't mention the cutscene thing again. That easily could have been a running joke, but they kind of dropped the ball on that one. There's other continuity errors within the film itself, but the ones that bother me probably the most, besides maybe the Kevin Hart one, is the continuity between this film and the original. One thing they did really well in the original film was keep the actual mystery of Jumanji almost terrifying. It almost felt like an alien planet coming to our own with little hints of giant spiders, giant mosquitoes, giant plant monsters. It was almost terrifying in a way, at least as a kid. And now we have this film that's, again, not a reboot, but a sequel to the original film that's bringing us into the actual world of Jumanji. This should have been a crazy way to take opportunities of all the other stuff that the original film has set up. But this jungle that we're in is just a jungle. The only big difference is the villains have like weird bug things going on, and some of the animals are bigger than normal, except when they're annoyingly not. In the original film, mosquitoes were one of the most threatening things in the entire film, and one of the things that scared me the most as a kid. When the Nick Jonas character said he had a weakness to mosquitoes, of course that was supposed to set up to him dying to a mosquito. This got me excited in the audience because I thought I was going to see the mosquitoes from the original film. But then the mosquito he dies to is just a normal mosquito you would see in the real world. In fact, I don't think you even see the mosquito. I think it's just a sound effect they added in the film. Where's the giant spiders? Where's the plant monster? Where's that hunter in the original film? That could have been cool to see. Again, like I mentioned, this film could have been called anything else. I don't think anyone would tell the difference. In fact, it being called Jumanji might weaken it just a little more. Despite the compliments I'm giving, this is definitely a movie that just wants to make money from name recognition from both the actors and the actual title of the film itself. And this becomes really apparent during the times where the cliches are so obviously put in just to make it feel like a blockbuster movie. This is most obvious in both the Nick Jonas character and the villains that I mentioned earlier. My problem with the Nick Jonas character isn't really the character itself, it's more the fact of how he dies. Every character in the film has a weakness, and a lot of them make sense, a lot of them are forced, like the Kevin Hart cake one. But the one that's definitely the most forced was Nick Jonas' mosquito weakness. You're telling me you've lived in this jungle for 20 years and you've only died twice and your weakness is mosquitoes. I'm sorry, but that's unbelievable to me. Just a couple minutes after he steps out of his safe zone into the middle of the jungle, he immediately gets bit by a mosquito and dies. And then mosquitoes just don't become a problem after that. You're in the middle of the jungle. Mosquitoes are going to be a problem. Now, if they actually had some continuity in it and brought in the original mosquitoes, that could have been more believable. You could actually see the mosquitoes coming, you could have seen him fight them off or something. And maybe one just happened to get to him. Or just give him a weakness that isn't stupid, like drowning or something. And then the other cliche that feels super forced and unnecessary is the villain. This guy had no reason to actually be in the film, and all he really did was just add another obstacle. Every time he popped on screen or any of his goons popped on screen, all I could think to myself is, man, wouldn't this sequence be cooler if it was something else? There was one thing in the film I really did enjoy overall, and that it didn't treat its audience like it was dumb when it came to all the video game mumbo jumbo. The only time they really did anything like that was when they were in the car with the NPC and Kevin Hart says, "Whoa, why is he not talking to me? This is ridiculous." That's when the Dwayne Johnson character says, "Oh, he's an NPC and this is how he works." I think that's just a way for the audience to get comfortable into the world of the video game. After that, it's very rare when they have to explain everything that's going on unless it's a rule that applies to the movie itself. The best example of this is near the end of the film when Dwayne Johnson dies to the tigers and pumas or whatever they were. I can't remember. And when Dwayne spawns back in, all the big cats that killed him disappear to where they were originally standing before they killed him. This is clearly a joke on checkpoints, and I was really worried when this happened. I thought he was going to make, "Oh wow, that was a checkpoint." But everyone shrugs it off and they don't even mention it. It just happens. That kind of stuff I really appreciate because it makes me feel like the writers of this film isn't treating its audience like it's stupid. This film was fun, but I don't think it's anything special. If you don't end up seeing it, I don't think you're missing out in any way. I'm probably never going to see it again, but it made me laugh, and that's way more than I expected from it. There's definitely things to enjoy about this film, but there's a lot of annoyances that keeps it from being anything memorable. And I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10.